Hello Internet, my name's Ginger and welcome back to the Variant Rules channel. This week, we're introducing a new video series we like to call Legends of the Past. For our first episode, we will be showcasing a build using the dual class, free archetype, and ancestry paragon variant rules that we have used in our table in a previous campaign. This video covers the build for Stulx, the Liberator of Normizix. The concept for this character came about when our campaign party needed a frontline tank, so I poured all of my effort into finding a combination of classes and feats that would make the most disruptive tank I could manage. If you're looking for an optimized damage build, you won't find it here. Rather, this build is a pure tank support build with the purpose of locking down the enemy frontline and disrupting them to allow your flankers and damage dealers to push out some ridiculous damage. With this build, if you time it correctly, you can grant your teammates an effective +4 to their attack rolls against your enemies, making their attacks a full 20% more likely to hit, and potentially even to crit. Not to mention forcing your enemies to waste action economy to recover from your crowd control. I lost count of the number of times we trivialized a strong enemy because I was able to get a hold of it to debuff its AC to oblivion. Additionally, you have several tools that will allow you to mitigate damage and conditions for your party in order to keep them alive and healthy. If this sounds like an interesting build to you, then by all means stick around. For this build, we will be choosing our first non-human ancestry in Hobgoblin. Pathfinder Hobs hail from a militaristic society, and as such, some of their ancestry feats are insanely good for crowd control in the front line. We'll choose the warrior background for intimidation training, and the intimidating glare skill feat for free. For our dual class, we will be a champion fighter for the defensive utility from champion and the multitude of maneuvers from fighter. Our starting ability scores are 18 strength, 12 dexterity, 14 constitution, 12 intelligence, 8 wisdom due to our ancestral flaw, and 14 charisma. The 18 strength is so we can more easily grab and trip our foes in melee, and in the future our strength will grant us a bonus to our intimidation checks to offset our rather low starting charisma. Don't worry about the very low wisdom score, we'll be able to shore up our defenses here as well. Our primary skill proficiencies will be athletics, intimidation, and acrobatics. Finally, for our heritage, we will choose Steelskin Hobgoblin so we can more easily shrug off persistent damage. We get quite a few feat choices at level 1, so for our first ancestry feat we will choose Remorseless Lash so that when our enemies are frightened, we can keep them frightened. When we land a successful strike against a frightened foe, they can't reduce their condition below 1 until the beginning of our next turn. Since we are using Ancestry Paragon variant rules, we get a bonus ancestry feat, and we'll select Leech Clipper so that when we land a critical hit with our War Flail, we can wrap it around our target's ankles and drop it to reduce their speed by 10 feet until they take 2 actions to remove it. We will choose the Liberator Champion cause so that we can help our allies reposition for free. For our champion feat, we will take Unimpeded Step, which allows our allies to step regardless of terrain when we use our Liberating Step reaction. Our fighter feat is Reactive Shield since our action economy is already looking rough. In a pinch, we can raise our shield as a reaction. Other things to note are that we will start with a breastplate for armor, but we will want to trade this for a set of half plate as soon as we can afford it. Our weapon of choice will be a War Flail so that we can gain an item bonus to trip checks and we don't need a free hand to trip. If we want to grab an enemy, we can just drop our flail on the ground or just don't draw it in the first place. For this build to be most effective, we want to be sure to target our foe's lowest save, meaning we will grab enemies with low fortitude and trip foes with low reflex. While this build already seems extremely busy, your turns won't actually be that crazy. Most of the time you'll just stride or step, raise a shield, and trip or grab. If it makes more sense, you can also demoralize, but that's a bit unlikely to work until we can get some bonuses to intimidation. At level 2, our champion feat will be Divine Grace so that we can shrug off magical effects with a +2 to our saving throw. Fighter gives us aggressive block so that we can shove an enemy that attacks us for free if we shield block their attack. For our free archetype, we will choose the Martial Dedication to grant us a free skill boost to Expert Intimidation, as well as a 10-foot aura which grants us and all allies in the area a +1 status bonus to saves against fear. For our skill feat, we will take Intimidating Prowess so we can add a +1 circumstance bonus to our demoralized checks, or a +2 once our strength score reaches 20. By level 2, we are already building a combo that lets us trip our foes to make them flat-footed to our melee allies, then we can frighten them for a total of -3 penalty to their AC, assuming we only get a normal success on our demoralized actions. Once the foe is frightened, as long as we keep hitting them with strikes, they stay frightened. This combination is already nasty. At level 3, we will boost our athletics skill. For our bonus ancestry feat from Ancestry Paragon, we will take Cantorian Reinforcement to allow us to more easily recover from disease and poison. We will also take the Toughness General feat for more HP, a very necessary stat for tanks. We gain a Divine Ally from our Champion class, and we will choose a Shield Ally. This initially makes our shield harder and more durable so we can block more attacks before it breaks. Bravery lets us treat successes on will saves against fear effects as 1 degree better, and anytime we gain the Frightened condition, we reduce its value by 1. We're the ones who do the frightening. For our level 4 fighter feat, we'll grab Powerful Shove, allowing us to use aggressive block against enemies up to huge size, as well as causing enemies we shove to take damage equal to our strength modifier if they hit a wall. It's free damage. For Champion, we take Aura of Courage, allowing us to negate 2 levels of the Frightened condition when we become frightened, as well as letting us reduce the Frightened condition of all allies within 15 feet at the end of our turn. We are a reassuring presence to our allies. For our free Archetype feat, we will grab the Dread Martial stance, which lets us make a standard DC Intimidation check to attempt to expand our martial aura, as well as causing our allies within the aura to frighten our enemies when they land a critical hit. Our skill feat will be Powerful Leap, so we can leap further without having to make checks. Leaping over difficult terrain will save us a lot of precious movement speed. At level 5, we get our first set of ability boosts, and we'll take Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, and Charisma. This will be our last Dexterity boost, and this is only so that we can take a multi-class dedication down the line. We'll take a skill increase to Diplomacy here, but you can feel free to choose whatever you want for this one. For our Ancestry feat, we'll take Agonizing Rebuke, causing the victims of our demoralized checks to take 1d4 mental damage at the start of each of their turns for as long as they remain frightened. This is a gnarly feat since this could potentially cause the enemy to die at the beginning of their turn from sheer fright. For our Fighter Weapon Mastery, we'll select the Flail group, so we'll be Master level proficient with our War Flail. At 6th level, we'll grab the Reflexive Shield Fighter feat, so we can add our Raised Shield Circumstance bonus to our Reflex saves as well as our AC. We will also be able to shield block damage from fireballs and the like. The Shield Warden Champion feat allows us to use our shield block reaction to block damage for adjacent allies. It's a good idea to try to get our melee party members to stay very close to us at this point, since most of our party utility has a range within 15 feet. For our free archetype, we'll take Cadence Call, which lets us spend an action to quicken our allies within our martial aura, allowing them to stride, but if they use the quickened action, they are slowed 1 for their next turn. This feat is kind of terrible for now, but it can save you in a pinch, and will get way better in a few levels, I promise. We'll also take the Quick Jump skill feat so that we can high jump and long jump as a single action instead of 2. At level 7, we'll grab Master Proficiency in Athletics, and for our Ancestry Paragon feat, we'll take Recognize Ambush, allowing us to draw a weapon as a free action when we roll initiative. We're always ready to lay the smackdown. We'll take the Feather Step General feat as well so that we can step in difficult terrain. Not a lot of enemies have attacks of opportunity, but we'll be glad to have this against some of the nastier ones. We'll also get Armor Expertise for expert proficiency in all armor, as well as armor specialization effects for medium and heavy armor. Battlefield Surveyor grants us Master rank in Perception, as well as a +2 circumstance bonus to initiative rolls with Perception, and we get Weapon Specialization for additional flat damage on our weapon strikes. At 8th level, we'll take the second Ally Champion feat, gaining the Blade Ally, which allows us to choose a free property rune from Disrupting, Ghost Touch, Returning, or Shifting. More often than not, we'll be using Disrupting or Ghost Touch here in order to better deal with undead. We'll also grab the Quick Shield Block Fighter feat, granting us an extra reaction per turn that we can only use to shield block. With as many reactions as we have access to, this is a welcome boost to our action economy. For our free archetype feat, we're going to pick up the Swashbuckler dedication, selecting the Gymnast subclass. This sounds like an odd choice, but we gain Panache whenever we trip or grapple, which grants us an additional speed which we sorely lack, as well as a +1 circumstance bonus to subsequent trips, grabs, and shoves. When we succeed once, we just get better. Finally, we'll take the Titan Wrestler skill feat so we can disarm, grab, trip, and shove huge and eventually gargantuan enemies. Dropkicking a T-Rex to knock it over is a fun time. Take it from me. At level 9, we'll take a skill increase to Intimidation. We also gain a bonus feat from Fighter that we can change during our daily preparations. There will definitely be instances where you'll want something different, but our go-to feat for this slot will be Shatter Defenses, which causes our strikes against frightened targets to cause them to become flat-footed until they are no longer frightened. Since we already have abilities to keep them frightened, expect your enemies to be perpetually flat-footed. For our Ancestry feat, we'll grab Squad Tactics so that enemies are flat-footed to us as long as the 2 other allies are adjacent. This will be less useful for smaller or more ranged-focused parties, but if you have at least 3 primary melee characters, this feat is extremely useful. At this level, we also gain our Divine Smite, which allows us to cause persistent good damage to an enemy targeted by our champion's reaction. Our champion class DC increases to Expert, and we gain the Juggernaut feature, causing all of our successful Fortitude saves to be treated as 1 degree better. At 10th level, we get another set of ability boosts: Strength, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. For our fighter feat, we'll take Combat Reflexes, so we get an extra reaction to be used for attacks of opportunity. From Champion, we'll select Shield of Reckoning, which lets us combine our Liberating Step and Shield block into 1 reaction if both would be triggered by the same attack. We're steadily improving our reaction economy here. For our free archetype feat, we will take Basic Flair, selecting Antagonize, a level 2 swashbuckler feat. This feat causes enemies we demoralize to not be able to reduce their frightened condition below 1 unless or until they take a hostile action against us or can no longer observe or sense us for 1 round. This basically works like a soft taunt and encourages our foes to target us rather than our allies. Lastly, we will take the Battlecry skill feat, allowing us to attempt to demoralize an enemy as a free action when we roll initiative. This is more effective when we go first or nearly last in the turn order, but is useful regardless. Our level 11 skill increase is personal preference, but we'll choose Acrobatics here. For our Ancestry Paragon feat, we will take Cantorian Rejuvenation, which lets us recover a chunk of hit points and grant us temporary HP for 1 minute. Good for those emergency situations when your healer can't reach you or your party doesn't have a healer. We'll grab the Fleet General feat to improve our speed. We also gain the Exalt rank of our champion reaction, allowing us and all of our allies within 15 feet to step if the triggering ally doesn't have to escape. We also gain Master Proficiency in Will saves, as well as treating successful Will saves as 1 degree higher. For level 12, we grab the Divine Wall Champion feat, which causes all spaces adjacent to us to be difficult terrain for our enemies. Most monsters are unable to step in difficult terrain, meaning that anytime a monster wants to reposition around us, they have to stride, triggering an attack of opportunity. We'll also take the Flinging Shove feat from Fighter, allowing us to choose whether our enemy is flat-footed or pushed after we use aggressive block. For free archetype, we'll grab Swashbuckler Speed, further improving our movement speed. Finally, we will take the Assurance feat for Athletics, so that we don't have to worry about failing checks to leap over gaps of terrain, and we can automatically succeed checks to grab or trip weaker enemies. Our skill increase for 13th level is another preference choice, but we'll take Acrobatics here for this build. Our Ancestry Paragon feat will be Can't Fall Here, a reaction that allows us to prevent an adjacent ally from falling unconscious once per day. We also gain Legendary Proficiency with Flails and Master Proficiency in all armor. Not much going on at this level. Our 14th level champion feat is Divine Reflexes, which grants us an additional reaction to be used only for our champion's reaction. For our fighter feat, Determination allows us to end a condition affecting us as an action with no check, or we can attempt to counteract a spell effect. Our enemies can't hold us down. For our archetype feat, we go back to Martial to finally upgrade our Cadence Call to Tactical Cadence, which allows our allies to use the hasted action to stride or strike, and they are no longer slowed when they use the hasted action. Once per minute, non-magical haste is not to be underestimated. For our skill feat, we choose Kip Up. If you've seen my other build videos, you know that I swear by this feat. If you haven't, go give them a watch. What are you doing? For our level 15 ability boost, we take Strength, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. We'll also grab Athletics as our first legendary skill. Additionally, we get another bonus feat from Fighter, and we take Stance Savant so we can activate Dread Martial Stance for free as soon as we roll initiative. For Ancestry Paragon, we take We March On to gain the Caravan Leader and pick up the Pace General feats for free, making cross-country travel much easier. Incredible Investiture as our general feat lets us attune to 2 additional magic items. We also gain Evasion for mastering reflex saves, and successes are 1 degree better, as well as greater weapon specialization for even more flat damage on strikes. At level 16, we get the Shield of Grace Champion feat, allowing us to take some of the damage we block for our ally with Shield Warden. HP is one of our main resources, so why not use it? Additionally, we take Improved Reflexive Shield from Fighter, which lets us grant the damage reduction against things like fireball spells to our adjacent allies as well. We'll grab Advanced Flare from our Swashbuckler archetype and take Vivacious Bravado so we can spend an action to gain temp HP when we gain Panache. Lastly, we get Cloud Jump as our skill feat, allowing us to jump incredible distances. Our 17th level skill boost is to Intimidation, bumping it up to Legendary. For our Ancestry feat, we'll take Rallying Cry, which lets us grant temp HP to all allies within 30 feet, as well as quickening them for 1 minute, once per day. This is a huge buff for a purely martial character, and allows your casters to save the spell slot they would normally allocate to the haste spell. We also gain Master Proficiency in Champion DC, as well as Legendary Proficiency in Armor. At level 18, we grab the Rejuvenating Touch Champion feat, so that when we cast Lay on Hands on an ally, they also gain 10 temporary hit points at the start of their turn for 10 rounds. That's 100 points of effective healing on top of your normal Lay on Hands healing. In the right circumstances, this feat is incredible. We get Savage Critical from Fighter, allowing us to crit on a 19 as long as it would normally be a success. We'll take Coordinated Charge from our Martial Archetype so we can sudden charge an enemy, and if we hit, all of our allies that could see us within 60 feet can use their reaction to stride immediately. Lastly, we take the Scare to Death skill feat, allowing us to potentially kill a weaker enemy with just a glare. Kind of ridiculous. At 19th level, we get another preference skill increase. For this build, we can take Diplomacy here. For our final Ancestry Paragon feat, we'll grab Cantorian Restoration, which lets us cast Breath of Life on an enemy within 60 feet who would die. An emergency 68 of healing is ridiculously good. We'll also take Fast Recovery for our general feat to speed up our passive recovery. The Hero's Defiance Champion feature lets us recover 10d4 plus 20 hit points as a free action if we would be brought to 0 HP, potentially keeping us from falling unconscious or dying. I think at this point we might be utterly incapable of dying. At level 20, for our final set of ability boosts, we'll again boost Strength, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma. For our Fighter Capstone, we get Boundless Reprisals, giving us an additional reaction at the start of every enemy's turn that can only be used for an attack of opportunity. No one will get to our squishies for free. For our Champion Capstone, we'll take Shield Paragon, massively boosting our shield hardness and durability, as well as allowing it to be automatically repaired for free during our daily preparations. With the right shield, you can have a shield that has over 300 hit points. Absolutely nuts. For our free Archetype feat, we'll grab another Swashbuckler feat, namely Daring Do. This feat makes it so that when we attempt to grab, trip, or shove while we already have Panache, each subsequent check is made as a fortune roll. Finally, the Terrified Retreat skill feat causes enemies lower than our level to flee if we critically succeed at a demoralized check. Ooh, thanks for sticking around this long. As you can see, variant rule builds can get crazy. For builds like this, you definitely want to focus on grabbing passive abilities that modify your existing actions rather than taking feats that grant additional ones. Due to Pathfinder 2e's 3-action economy, you probably won't use all of your tools in every encounter, but the benefit is that you have a tool for almost every occasion. If you enjoyed this look into the possibilities of the PF2e system, please drop us a like and subscribe for more content. If there's a build you'd like to see in the future, let us know down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and as always, see you next Saturday.